This is meeting number 2 of Joint Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance operating budget presentations. And first on our agenda is the Parks Department. Adam.
Very good. Yeah.
I thought about it.
First
I
time
thought about
ever.
it.
First time ever.
I was rehearsing.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Adam.
All right, let's get to business. Payroll in the Parks Department is just a modest increase on our full-time workers.
Okay.
Part-time seasonal stays the same. Overtime goes up a bit.
Do you want to explain that, Adam?
Well, historically, I mean, last year, or this year actually, $4,000 we've spent so far, and $500 is only one night's call on overtime to take care of the sidewalks for snow removal. That's about it. The buyback sick time goes up. Buyback sick goes up because of the extra full-time worker. That's a given. Uniform allowance goes up a little bit because the new full-time worker. Work boots, work gloves, eyeglasses. Medical expenses stay the same. Rental, porta potties around the ball field stay the same. Telephone goes up just a smidge. Communications stays the same. The dues goes up $10. I think the tree warden dues went up $10, so that's why the increase. The training stays the same. Supplies stays the same. Equipment stays the same. Vehicle supplies stay the same. Gas goes down, which is for everybody. Next page, electric buildings stays the same. Water goes up. Looks like we're going to spend $8,000 last year. 2 years in a row we spent a lot of money, and this year coming, that's where that increase is for.
That's sprinkling?
Yeah. Bad couple of years.
Irrigation? Is
Yeah.
that irrigation?
Yeah, it's dry. Remember the summer, how dry it was?
I know.
Yeah. But that's 2 years in a row we've had that. And it's kind of scary, but that's where the increase comes in there. Nothing for capital machinery. Capital furniture and fixtures. The next page. Removal of large white pines at the playground at center field. I don't know if you remember, years ago we removed the white pines in the playground. Now right on outside the fence there's the same size white pine trees that are 80 to 100 feet tall looming still over the playground. So they need to be removed, and that's $5,000. Capping of the parking lot at the new playground. That's the stone playground, the stone parking lot next to the playground. I want to cap it with stone dust, like make it a little bit easier for people to walk on.
Can I ask why we need to remove the pine trees around the field?
In other words,
Because
if they're not in it, what's the?
they're looming over it. So several times during the season, I'll come down there in the morning and there's a large limb sitting in the playground. It's a large limb.
So could we trim the trees instead of
No,
taking
because
them down?
they've grown for so many years there. They're all stretching like a bean pole to reach the sun, so they're extremely tall. So the limbs are way up in the air, and you get a breezy day, and one limb comes down, it would crush anything that's there, even the playset. And it's a safety issue.
Okay, thank you.
Adam, what are we doing about the all-natural
Pesticide.
pesticides, et cetera, this year? I know you said last year You ended up with what, weeds?
Well, the state has a policy, first of all, no pesticides anywhere near a playground or on a playground. So we've implemented spray nematodes on the adjacent field next to the playground.
Mhm.
But I just recently went to a seminar, and they came out with a product that controls grubs. It's called BT. It's a bacteria. It's called BTG, and it infects the grubs, and it's organic,
Okay.
and it's granular, and I'm going to use it this year.
Okay.
And that's where you have to use a lot of water, right?
That's correct. And this would be wonderful because I could apply it 4 months before summer,
Yeah.
so we have ample amount of time to water it in. It's granular, or you could buy it in a flowable, mix it in a spray tank and spray it.
Mhm.
And it's completely organic, and it has 75% control.
We
And
were
it
in
just
the same
came out.
seminar.
This was huge news.
Yeah, great news.
It's very exciting.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try it.
So Adam, can you not use that down at West River
I could use this anywhere.
and just hope to get enough water at West River, or do you
That's
have
right. You could use, I just watched the weather coming and I applied
use
before.
it before
And if
the
I'm
rain?
correct, it's allowed to put this on school grounds,
Mhm.
this bacteria. So this is big news.
Yeah, but you need water.
We need water, but that's no problem whatsoever. With the nematodes, I had to spray it in the third week in August. I mean, look at the weather the third week in August, dry as a bone. So,
So to go on, for your major objectives, can you tell me or tell us how the fields have progressed this year, and which two of the footings you plan on, which are the dugouts?
oh,
you
okay,
plan
yeah,
on?
sure. The footings are the rest of the, let's start with them first. I replaced the dugout down at West River with concrete, and we had issues in the past with burrowing bees. That's why we did this. And in the past, all the time we brought in sand to fill in the dugout, the bottom of the dugout, so there's drainage, but it's a double-edged sword. So the bees started burrowing in the ground, and literally there was 1,000 bees hovering above the ground, about 6 inches, and of course everybody lost it. The bees don't sting at all. You could literally grab it, put it in your hand, but I mean, to a child and a parent, it's
Scary.
very scary. So this concrete eliminates that, and we did it at West River, and it came out great success, fantastic. So I want to do the other dugouts, center field, finish West River, and that'll be it. There won't be any problems. And it's nice because kids can go in there, don't have to worry about the bees. They can put it on a dry surface. It's cleaner. It's just a smart thing to do. Then what was the other question about
The fields, how did the fields make out this year?
Oh, okay, the fields up at Acorn, I don't know if you remember the pictures of all the damage that happened from the skunks coming out and foraging for the grub. We had none of that last year, and the fields came, I overseeded it, and we put down organic fertilizer. We did put down insecticide to eliminate that, and they came back beautifully. All the fields did, even with the drought. It was a big change, huge change, even at West River.
Excellent.
Yeah, so it's a wonderful thing. The only thing I will do is apply crabgrass control in specific areas, not haphazardly over the entire field, only where the crabgrass is coming in. So it's very limited crabgrass control. They just have not invented a organic crabgrass control.
So there's still 2 applications of pesticide.
One
at pesticide and one crabgrass?
Well, the pesticide's
Well-
out, it's organic. It's gonna be completely organic.
Okay, so what you had to do to eliminate the problem that the skunks were coming around for the grubs
Is apply the pesticide.
is one application?
Right. that
So you don't have to do it twice a year, it's one time?
Well, it's a new product, and we have Acorn, one of our best fields, and I haven't talked to the vendor yet about how much guarantee this is going to stop the skunk from coming out.
But that's
Remember, the grub will still grow. Just the grub will hatch and turn into an adult, but it does it. The BT will infect it immediately when it's young. So I'm still concerned about the grubs. It still will smell them immediately, even though they're tiny. So I'm concerned about that a little bit. So they still might come up and tear up the field, even though the grub's starting to die.
So you'd address that in the fall if that happened, late August?
If it does happen, I'll just spot treat as needed, and you can actually spot treat an additional application of BT. That's nice about this new product. So it's
Okay, anything else on parks? All right, pool and gym, 1515.
very good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Adam.
Adam.
You too.
Brad?
Hi, Brad.
And this is, okay, 0% increase. Any questions?
0.
Zero.
I actually did have a question.
You're amazing.
I love the budget. I have one question. Under 55-230, oil heating, are we still using oil heating in the?
No, that can be deleted.
That should be deleted. Because that's a $13,500 cost that I saw stay the same.
So how do we heat it?
It's,
Gas.
That's gas.
But there's no gas,
Here for
so there's no gas in here though? Or is that,
That heat comes from North School.
come from North School.
comes out of school?
Yeah,
So we can eliminate that?
it's a new setup with the project.
Okay.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
so
And
that
that's,
would be eliminated.
that's gas
That's why I
fired.
just wondered, because I thought we had
Yep.
gas there.
So where
Great.
is it that you still have the oil burners and the gas heaters? As back, there's somewhere in one of the facilities where both those systems coexist. It's not the pool?
No, the only two facilities is the Thomas Darling House is on oil and the country club.
Okay, any other questions on pool and gym? Of course, this again is the Beecher pool, not to be confused with our 8 o'clock hour, the country club pool. So,
Top and tip. You
all right, how about
guys
building
are-
maintenance, 1370?
Count outdoor pool, count indoor pool.
Building maintenance actually went down a couple $100.
Went down, any questions?
We got it down a couple of $100.
I loved it.
We
When
did.
if Tony ever leaves, we're gonna hire you.
I think it's almost $500 down.
And just for the cameras, Brad,
Yes.
just run down the building, and when we say building maintenance, what are we talking about?
We're talking about repair and maintenance to all town-owned buildings, which could consist of anything to repairing a light, to
Which buildings is
a
specific?
center building, old and new firehouse, we do go in, the Thomas Darling House, the country club, this building, the new public works garage, and public library. Any of those buildings at any one time, we could be called for a service work order that's generated by somebody within that building, or we see something in the building that's defective and broken, and we repair it.
Okay.
And it's just about anything. We tackle pretty much anything.
I have one question for you, Brad. Under your major objectives, continue underground storage tank removal. Are we down to one?
One tank.
One tank. So that goes this year?
And that's a tough one, right?
Well, we're not exactly sure. We haven't exposed it. It appears that some of the tank may go underneath the sidewalk, but we won't know for sure. A lot of it will be hand dug, so we know exactly which way it goes. And it's a minor repair to the sidewalk if it does have a tendency to come this way, actually towards you, as you said.
Is there any worry about contamination there?
Done with that tank. That tank was inspected a couple of years ago. We did a pressure test on it. It wasn't leaking 6, 7 years ago when Joe was here. We had a company actually pressurize the tank, put a gauge on it, see if the pressure
So
dropped.
that's the only tank left?
That's it?
'Cause I remember one night
There's one at the country club.
somebody was talking about tanks.
Yeah,
and
obviously, there's one at the
That's
country
what I'm
club.
remembering
multiple
also.
tanks.
Yeah.
and-
That'll come
There's, that's not the only one, there's another one. But Country Club
Country club and
I think that,
New firehouse.
and the new firehouse?
Yes.
Yeah.
that's still under negotiations. I think we can
That's
still
another
work
headache.
out a different way to
Yeah,
utilize the
but
tank and leave it in the
We're
ground.
not free and clear of the tanks yet.
No,
Yeah,
but
Not with those.
Well, the firehouse tank's gotta be brand new, right?
pretty new.
Yeah.
right.
So
It's a
I
double
think-
wall tank.
Right, we're not free of them, but we've been progressing with a plan
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
remove
Totally,
them.
yeah,
Totally.
yeah.
We don't anticipate.
We know where they are and we're dealing with them.
Well,
Their days are numbered.
We're getting very good at it.
as they say, thank you.
And before we move on, I do want to thank you both for your help during the storm. Everybody did a fabulous job as always, so thank you so much.
Okay.
Any other questions? Anything?
The center.
Good.
Are you doing the center,
I
Brad?
don't think so.
You're not?
I'll answer a question in the center if I know the answer.
There's nothing there, right?
Yeah.
So,
I do have the budget, so
any questions on the center? We know what the center is. It's mainly the utilities for the center. Okay. Conservation Commission.
that's it.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thanks,
Have a
Brad.
good night.
Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
All right.
Evening, everybody.
How are you?
Our ask this year for conservation is the same as last year's request. General professional services was the highest number at 4,500. Then the other smaller items, printing and binding for 600, professional development 500, programs publicity 400, and office materials 200. The professional development, various members of the Conservation Commission, including myself, do attend workshops. Maria's on one of those, Kakiwik. They do a great workshop in November every year. And there's others that happens, one coming up in March. And that's what those dues go through. The professional services, that's the majority of our request. The narrative that I have on here, I thought I had updated it, but apparently it slipped my mind. It was a copy and paste error from last year. The professional services that we would typically employ, as we're seeing currently, the Conservation Commission came before the Board of Selectmen asking for appraisals of a property so that we can move forward on a grant application. And that money would be considered professional services from Conservation Commission. So that's one of the reasons for that higher number for that line item.
And do you anticipate additional grants this next year that you'll apply?
You know, they change every year. We hope that the state budget is always sufficient enough to continue offering grants. Where I personally work, we're always hawkish on the state money because we get money from the state. So when the budget gets questionable, you never know what's going to get whacked. And unfortunately, conservation items tend to be on the chopping block frequently. And sometimes there are grants that pop up almost apparently randomly. For example, there was a trails grant opportunity that we went for earlier in 2015. That is somewhat regular, but it's difficult to plan ahead because sometimes the money's there and sometimes it's not.
And if there weren't any grants then, would you still need this money?
It depends upon the projects that we're looking at. Currently on topic for the coming fiscal year is to work on open space management plan, and there could be some studies that we would like to perform, which would involve hiring somebody outside of our scope of competency. So we'd have to, approach land surveyors, forestry professionals, etc.
Okay.
Jason?
Yes, Doug.
I know you've been working a little on the Nugent property, the property down Litchfield Turnpike, and I know the board gave you some interest in finding out more about and doing an assessment. Do you need one assessment? Does that require you getting two assessments?
It does require two appraisals because
Two appraisals.
Yep.
So have you gotten any pricing on that to have an idea? Is that how you came up with this number, or?
No. Now in that case, that specific case, the appraisals I believe were costing about $3,000 a piece. And I know Betsy and Tony and I have talked to make sure that those costs are covered. We haven't got the figures back yet. Betsy has been in contact with the appraisers to get the final figure. So I'm hoping to hear. The application is due Monday, so
Yeah.
we're coming down to the wire on getting some responses.
Sorry, no, I was just gonna ask, those two would be under this year's budget, fiscal
Correct,
budget.
correct,
Not the one we're looking at, but the current.
Correct.
I was just wondering,
Thought we
3,000.
allocated money for those.
For this year, yes.
We did.
We did.
Yeah.
They
So
paid
he
some,
can
we
apply
paid.
for that.
Correct.
Just for next year,
This is
in case he has the same.
In case we come across another nice grant opportunity that fits a property well.
So the grant will go in by Monday?
It absolutely will.
Nice job.
Jason, I don't know if you know offhand. If you don't, it's not a problem.
I'll do my best.
How many acres of open space do we have?
Oh my goodness. I don't have my folder
No,
with all
okay,
the
yeah, I
information
figured
in
as
front
much.
of me.
Wild guess.
Wild guess. I don't want to give wild.
If you don't know,
guesses.
don't worry about it.
But I do know when you talk about open spaces in town, and Maria can attest to this, you look at town-owned properties, land trust properties, parks association properties, state properties, and water authority properties. Those are the big landholders of open space. And if you add all of those holdings together, it's upwards of the 30% mark in town.
30% of all our land.
Right. The water authority holds a huge amount of property in town. But I don't have an exact acreage number off the top of my head.
The assessor.
Yeah, I can answer.
Okay.
1,300 acres.
I wouldn't have been too far. I was going to guess between 1,000 and
And
1,100.
it's actually a little bit over 30%. You're correct.
I'm conservative.
What a team, huh? What a team. Okay, any other questions for Jason? Thank you very
All
much.
right. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks,
Thank you.
And with that, we have our assessor, Betsy. Why don't you do your budget and then we'll do capital.
Okay. You want me to start with me, Board of Assessment Appeals, either?
Do assessor first, which is
Okay.
1160.
I guess really the only changes are we're looking to replace the plotter that's in my office. It's having some issues and we got some estimates on fixing it, updating software, which would be close to probably almost $1,000. And last time, when we bought that one, we were looking at trying to get a printer, plotter, scanner, copier type, but that was 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago. And at that point, that was new technology, so it was really expensive. I mean, they were over $20,000. Now to buy one is little eights, or to lease, it's probably anywhere between $260 to $300 a month. So that was basically what the $3,500 budget amount was, and that $57,470 for capital and furniture and fixtures. Other than that, I don't think I changed anything. Postage went down, back down to what the way that we do the postage is we run everything through the general fund for revaluation. So because generally there's a little bit of wiggle room in the operating budget, so we don't take it from the capital account. So it went back down to the budgeted amount. And it won't be that high next year because reval is over. Any questions?
I have one question for you.
Sure.
On your performance indicators,
Mhm.
it reads to me that the grand list went up each of the last 3 years. For some reason, I thought the grand list had gone down the year previous to this. It's
The grand list,
yeah, under your performance indicators for your grand list figures, and your figures have gone up. But am I correct? The grand list or tax?
yes.
Yeah,
That-
probably in 14-15 it went down, revalued.
Yeah, it was a fiscal.
So if you had
So-
The fiscal
13,
year went down, but your
Yeah.
your particular numbers figures are going up.
Well, this was, see, everything was estimated and so it was projected, so it actually ended up, the actual was 14-15 was 13 grand list, right?
Right.
So I kept my estimated 14, which obviously was not right. But
Gotcha.
it was, if you're rolling it from one year to the next.
Right. So for your
So as you see,
That's always a-
I'm projecting a change, but not a big change.
Right.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Yes, it did go down,
Okay.
$66 million.
Thank you.
okay, anything else on assessor? Okay, the next tab then is Board of Tax Review, which is nothing. Any questions on this? And then we have your capital.
And the capital account is, it's funding for revaluation.
Mhm.
And in the past, we've kind of spread it out over the 5 years between one revaluation and another. That's why it's only a $10,000.
So it'll be 17 for the next fiscal year. 17, 17, 16. So 50.
what-
Yeah, you split it up over 3 years.
3 years.
Oh, I only did 3 years. Oh, yeah, because we
Yeah.
need to have the funding in place if we needed to
Correct.
do a
Right.
contract. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so, this year we used all the money because it was a commercial year. Will we use it all next revaluation? You hope not, but, you know, you can't have no money there. Just, you guys can decide what to do. We've generally done, in the past, we did 75, but we downgraded it to 50
Right.
for the 5 years, so.
Okay. Any other questions for Betsy?
No.
Thank you.
Could we, I don't think the Board of Ed is ready to go yet, so.
Well, they might be.
I don't know, they might be wanting, you want to get started? We're way ahead. I don't know if you want to wait for people or. Yeah, we'll wait. Well, you know, we could do, why don't we move, we could have Pooh do.
Yeah.
Good. Pooh, you want to do? Yeah.
Okay, I was trying to get one of my commissioners to come.
All right, then why don't we talk about debt service?
Okay.
1810.
I have a handout.
I mean, maybe, let's see, if I don't know if we can, like, move there's stuff on Thursday we can talk about, or is that not a good idea?
It's not on the,
No, it's not on the agenda.
No.
good handout out.
Debt service?
Debt service, yeah.
Just one page, Tony?
Pardon?
Just one?
Yeah, one, yeah.
We're reducing our debt. We're reducing the number of lines. So it only takes one page now.
I don't think so.
Yeah, right.
Gotta read it a little carefully.
What's this here? Oh, this is yeah, this is just one page, yeah.
Yeah.
That was the other stuff, yeah. I handed both. Is that what I did? Yeah, good. Okay. This is a layout of our debt service, and you should be familiar with this chart, and this highlights the current existing bonds that we have outstanding and each of the payments going out for the next 10 years. You'll notice that there's a refunding or refinance that we just did, which pays off essentially the 2001 and 2005 issues for next year. So you'll notice that they drop off. Actually, the 2001 is actually pretty much almost paid off. Then the refinance from 05 is refinanced in the 2015 issue, and then the fire station is refinanced starting in 2018. That's when the bonds were callable, so we refinanced them from that year, and I think that's it. So the 2003 issue, which you don't see here, was fully refinanced this current year. So what you have is the existing bonds on the top schedule. You'll see how they go out. Do we have notes for the last issue is the Beecher renovation? We've issued a little over $5 million already in bonds for the Beecher project. You'll see the first payment is due in 2017 for $500,000. It's pretty close to the refinance figure from 2001. So you can see the two projects are pretty close in their payments to try to level the debt service for that project. That's roughly a little less than half the project. We still have to finalize the project to issue the remaining debt. I use an estimate there. We've received over $1 million so far in grants and utility incentives, maybe 1.2 million. So we have to see where that process takes us and finalize the books before we can reissue the remainder of the debt. So the grants and the utility incentives reduce the amount of debt service that you ultimately pay, amount of debt that you ultimately issue on the project. It doesn't go towards the expenditure, it doesn't increase the project, it reduces the amount of debt that you ultimately would owe. So those are the top, so you can see the trend of $2.7 million, 2.9, and then it, for existing debt, starts to levels off for a few years and goes back down. The debt under consideration is,
Wait, Tony, so before you go to debt
Sure.
under consideration, can you
Oh,
speak to the country
yeah,
club
absolutely,
notes?
yeah. So the country club is our existing notes. The decision has to be made in terms of this year. The notes are refinanced in July. So if the town sort of has to make a decision whether you want to just issue bonds for that project or continue to issue notes. If you issue notes, there's interest rate risk, as we've seen. And so that's one issue that has to be resolved. So we can either capture the market at a lower point, or you take a risk with the if you reissue notes. The benefit of the notes is that they're easy to pay off should you have funds to pay them off, as opposed to bonds, which is costly and a little time. It's very difficult to do. So that's one issue. And also the current notes are taxable, which is currently the use of the property by Billy Casper. So you would have to sort of at least try to determine what the use of the property would be to determine whether or not the bonds or the notes are taxable or not. The taxable are much more expensive than tax-exempt notes or tax-exempt bonds. So there's some real issues here that have to be determined when it comes to financing the remainder of the debt. It's a little under $6 million at the moment. So those are some things you have to consider in the coming months. Again, in order to prepare the documents, we should know by beginning of June to middle of June, so we can prepare the official statements for the market. So that's sort of the timeline of when we sort of need to know what the financing will look like for the country club. We've enjoyed such low interest rates for the past, since we've had the debt. You know, I'd really hate to see them increase in the last year. So that's that. And then finally, under debt under consideration are the projects that are in the capital plan. I just tried to estimate where I thought they would fit into our debt curve here, but they're by no means final. Obviously, they're up to discussion, and you know, what you decide with the capital budget is sort of drives this information. Whether you increase a budget or you decrease it or you remove it from the capital plan or whatever you decide to do will drive this figure. And once you have the capital plan voted on, then I use that information in our debt presentations and our when we go out to market to predict or to show where I think debt is going. So it has some impact and some relevance to you know, what we present to the market. I can certainly do a full presentation if you want one, like we did last year. I think it was last year. If at some point in the future you'd like one, I'd be happy to do that.
Tony, can I ask you a couple
Sure, yeah.
questions? So, two things that I don't see on here, or I see possibly a difference. I'll start with the police. I thought we heard in the presentation that based on when that estimate of what the police station or renovation would cost, we can assume that number to be upward of $6 million now.
It could be. I didn't
I
include
only
it in
see
here.
about 4.8.
Right, and then there's a
There's
grant, so
a
it's like
grant.
5.2, 5.3.
Take it down and then add up. So that's maybe a few hundred more. I'm not going to even
Could be.
confirm what I said about the shed. And then the only other thing I didn't see in here, which we've heard recently, was talk of possibly in need of a fire truck or two that maybe we actually look to bond it, or maybe we actually, so
You could.
that could be a
You could add that
difference
too.
here, maybe for the, I think if.
I wouldn't bond I wouldn't do it by itself,
Right.
because to bond $1 million by itself
It's costly.
it was too costly to do that.
Yeah.
You're better off leasing it.
Right.
But if you have other items that you're bonding for and you just want to add it, it would cost nothing to just add it to a
If
schedule.
it happened to be at the same time as
Right,
police station.
exactly, right, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Very good.
Okay, any other questions on debt? Okay. Well, you know what, Terry's here, so if I know Guy wants, you ready? I thought I heard some teachers were coming.
Yeah,
It's up to you. If you'd like to get started, yeah. All right. Okay.
Do we have a number on
For the, it's debt service, it's already.
No.
Oh, yeah, there's a tab, it's towards the front.
They don't have a number.
No, there's no number for it. There's no number.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's an ongoing issue. Yes, I believe it is. I'm gonna move in the back just so I'm out of your way.
Tony, how are you? Hey, Maria. Here you go, Tony. More paper, because you guys don't have enough of that.
It's not together, I just got hold of it. Sure, absolutely.
There you go.
Oh, yeah. So we gotta watch it very closely.
Oh, don't look.
I'm gonna move just because.
Yeah. Yes. I put one there.
No, it's not in this book.
So I'm just going to say something very briefly, because Dr. Stella is obviously the pro here. And as always, I have to start with thank you to the Board of Selectmen, thank you to the Board of Finance, thank you to the Building Committee. The town has been incredibly supportive of education, our operating budget, capital budget, and of course the huge Beecher upgrade, which is very close to finishing and is wonderful. So thank you for all of that. Dr. Stella is going to go through all the details. It was a unanimous vote by the Board of Education to put forth this budget. It's what we think we need to continue the programs that we have and to provide the kind of education that this town expects. So thank you again. I know you guys are out like every night listening to budgets, and Dr. Stella will give you the details. Thank you.
Thank you, Margaret.
Good evening, members of the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance, members of our audience, and good evening, citizens of Woodbridge. I'm here to present the Board of Education budget proposal for the 2016-17 school year. Now, on January 2nd, I began my 11th year as superintendent of the Woodbridge School District. How time flies. Throughout my tenure, in preparing budgets, we've always held fast to the following mantra. One was the imperative that the quality of education had to improve with each year. Woodbridge citizens demand that, and it's important for our children. And second, we're all part of the same town, so we always looked at the point of view of how do we respect this taxpayer at the same time. What does this budget do? Above all, this budget supports the educational mission, needs, and priorities of the school district. At Beecher Road School, we like to say that we do it all. For example, we're moving, it's always a work in progress, but we're moving towards differentiated instruction. That means finding the learning pathway of every child. You could have a math class where you have some children who are off the charts in certain areas of mathematics, others that need pronounced support, and everything in the middle. You could have we have readers' workshop. What that means is that we find the literacy pathway of every child. Children are reading at different levels. They are grouped flexibly. They're reading partners and so on. So it's an important move that we have. Mathematics has been a major drive, especially during these past 2 years. With standardized tests and so on, we were off the charts with the last set of standardized tests. But we're going beyond that. We brought in support from our ACES, RESC, and also from the Tri-State Consortium. We had about 15 visitors stay with us from the Tri-State for 3 days, just looking at where we are and being critical partners as far as where we want to go. And we developed a two-year math plan that will take us to higher levels. Now, curriculum, our teachers work so hard. We're a small district. There's not a large district staff. The teachers do the work alongside the administrators. So they're constantly involved in curriculum update and development. Our balanced literacy model really prepares children for their lives. It goes beyond standardized tests. Prepares children to be lifetime readers, writers, thinkers, learners. We like to say there's a book for every child's interest. We have thousands of books in our central library, class library, that's all with the support of the town. The arts are the core of what we do. And you can see that in the drama programs, the musicals that we have, the music programs, and the visual arts. Walking the hallways of Beecher Road School, and they are long hallways, it's a gallery walk, and it's constantly changing. And there's empirical evidence as far as the quality of work that our children are doing from preschool on to 6th. So the arts are important. The new science standards are important. We're one of the few elementary schools that I know in the state that has a science laboratory, thanks to the support of the different boards and the citizens of Woodbridge. And a highly skilled science coordinator who works with our staff. We're pushing ahead. Science, the combination of science, technology, engineering, and mathematics is so important, starting in kindergarten. Embedded professional development is important because the main asset of any organization is the knowledge building that organization can do. So our teachers are engaged in all types of systemic mentorship and embedded professional learning as we go along. Put it simply, they're getting smarter and smarter by the day. And our teachers they're leaders of learning, that's the term I would use, because you have so many examples of them traveling far to the city gates, whether that be in New York, across the country, or wherever for seminars, workshops, summer institutes, things of that sort. That's what we want to encourage. The academic subjects, we hit them all. The arts I mentioned, our physical education and health programs second to none. Our children are blessed with a good environment for that. We have two gyms, a fitness room, 3 playgrounds, a swimming pool, quarter-mile loop, and 43 acres to run and romp and play all kinds of organized sports. But the most important aspect are the human resources, and that's the teachers that we have that are really dedicated to the staff. World language, our children are exposed to world language from kindergarten up to 6th grade, but we're looking at their pathway up to 12th grade. The end in mind is that we want children graduating high school with at least a second language. If they have a third, their family language, a fourth, that's great. Yeah. Academics are important, but social and emotional development of children is equally as important. This week at Beecher Road School is called Be Kind Week, and there are all kinds of things happening there. One is the Anti-Defamation League is giving workshops for our 6th graders, our pre-adolescents, on the importance of social interaction, bullying, things of that sort. Integrated technology. With the support of the boards and the town, we are a leader in technology in the state, especially on the elementary level. Children have choices as far as their learning. They can engage in accelerated learning, and they're moving forward in that area. And we also have the support of interns. 11 to 12 interns at the school. These are graduate students getting their certification. They serve as substitutes or to cover for meetings and things like that. But most importantly, we know who they are. They're screened carefully. We know their attributes. We interview them. They're assigned mentors. The children know them. They know the children. So they're part of our extended teaching cadre at the school. And we belong to the members in the Tri-State Consortium, a group of 45 high-performing districts in New York State, New Jersey, and Connecticut. And we interact with them very, very well. We like to say that Beecher Road School does it all. And that's what this budget supports, all of the above. We try our best to use a zero base as much as possible, but we're in a labor-intensive kind of work. So we know who our teachers are going to be when the budget's passed. We know what their salary ranges are, and so on. And that's 80% of the budget. But some of the accounts lend itself to a more bottom-up kind of approach. So our administrators reach out to our teaching staff, and they get feedback as far as what do we need to do the mission. And then, of course, there's usually a large number of requests, and that has to be pared down. We look at what's necessary, what's valuable, and what's nice to have. And that's how we work it. And whatever we put forward is something that has to support the mission. And of course, our business managers work closely together, the town side and the district, and there are similar practices in both areas. Again, we focus on the quality. I mentioned a lot about the quality, respect for the taxpayer. We have hundreds of accounts. We scrub each one. Some have been raised, but many have been reduced. And we tried hard to reduce this year. We know it's a tough budget year. We also had 3 sets of negotiations with our different certified and non-certified staff at the school. And there's a very collaborative approach, very collaborative. We think in terms of the needs of our employees, of the children, but also the town. And through that collaboration, we come up with meaningful results as far as the negotiated contracts. We use a managed staffing grid to analyze and look carefully at who are our faculty and staff members, where do they fit on the spectrum, is there a good distribution, what's going to happen 5 years from now, and how do we use it to do hiring that will bring high quality staff to our school, but also result in cost savings. There's a cost factor identified with all state mandates, and there are so many state mandates. So this budget includes funding those mandates. And that includes special education mandates, accountability plan, calls for costs. There's teacher and administrator evaluation plans, implementation of Common Core has a cost, and implementation of the new standardized online adaptive technology test has a cost to it. This budget meets those costs. And of course, anything associated with collective bargaining and all contracts. All these aspects are met by the budget. The proposal is for $13.8 million. That's an increase of 2.48%. Let's take a look at the history of our budget request and what we've gotten each year. I started in January 2006. Within a few weeks of coming here, I had to do a budget presentation. And I wasn't so successful the first year because in the following year, 2007, it was below zero budget. So you can see that. The following year, it was 9%, but don't get fooled by that. That was a year where there was an inordinate amount of unexpected special ed costs. So that's what shot that budget up those years. So if you look at it, some years were zero, some were a little higher, and so on. Everything was transparent. And again, we asked for the necessary and the valuable. The average increase over this 12-year period is about 3%. The past 5 years have been 2.4%. So the proposed budget is in the ballpark for that, 2.48. Now, enrollment is one of the key variables that has an effect on budget. As of today, we have 777 students plus 5 outplaced students. October 1st, we had 771. We've had a number of families move in just this past January. Projected next year is 785. So if we have 777 and we have 5 outplaced, if you use those numbers, we almost have that already. The number of classroom teachers that we're asking for is the exact same number that we have now. The numbers meet with the breakout we currently have, the Board of Education class size guidelines. We don't have the highest registers and classes in the state. We don't have the lowest. But we have suitable registers that allow teachers to do the job that they have to do, especially as we're moving towards differentiation. We're bucking the trend because there are major studies in Connecticut that indicate that school enrollment will drop perhaps as much as 35% in the next 10 years. And I'll demonstrate, I'll show that our trajectory over the past 5 years and looking forward is for gradual but upward movement. Our projections to 2020, based on the demographic study, is 80-plus students more than today. Now, let me give you an idea and then some explanation as far as our trends in enrollment. Let's go to 2010. Just a minute. Okay, let me point out a few things. From 2010, you see an upward trajectory. There was a slight drop this year from our high point, but it was a big burst from the year before. And it looks by the number of families coming in that we'll be back on that trajectory. But what's important is if you look back at the projections, and these are done by serious professionals, in 2010, the projection for 2015-16 was that we would have 661 children. And look what we have now, 777. Now don't fire the demographer, because again, we're bucking trends. In 2011, the projection was a more informed one, stating that we would have 685 students. What has happened that each year there's been a gradual increase. And we interview families that come in, it's no surprise to you. Families are coming for the education. Plus Woodbridge is a great town to live in. So as housing becomes available, I'm not saying there are hundreds of people coming, but there's a gradual increase. It's hard to go past 5 years. That's why every year we come to you whatever our updates are. But it looks like we're going to have that gradual increase as we go around. And again, we're bucking trends. We do our own internal 5-year projection, and we're more accurate with the year that's closest to us. So we're looking at 16-17, and we look at the breakout of classes. Again, class sizes are where they should be. Now, the variable are the moving trucks. Not sure which children come on the moving trucks. You could have children, like one year we had a lot of kindergarten children come in, and during the summertime. You could have middle school children come in. You could have an influx of children on the 5th grade level. So we try to have a flexibility. Sometimes we combine, we assess classroom size and so on. But 42 classes should give us some flexibility with this here. And again, these are taken from a demographer showing a slight increase each year. If the trends hold, and if they're accurate, and again, we'll come with the most current information every year, we'll probably have to add a teacher in 2018-19. But we look seriously at data, we look at trends, we listen carefully, look at reports from demographers. We speak with our real estate agents too. They're really excellent sources to get an idea of what's happening. Now, special education plays an important part in our budget proposal. I want to say up front that our special ed department does an outstanding job in providing the type of education that our children need, and every child is unique. But there are children today, special ed children, who are receiving education in their neighborhood school who several years ago wouldn't have the programming to do that. We'd have to outplace them, or in other districts would be outplaced. So not only are they getting what they're entitled to and the right to, but education in their neighborhood school, but our teachers are doing a wonderful job with them. When we have a situation where we cannot provide the type of education that a particular child needs, then the law mandates that we find a suitable environment outside of the school. And that's the right thing to do, too. And we take that very, very seriously. Tuition and transportation costs in special ed this year have gone up for next year's budget, quite substantially. Tuition for next year's budget has gone up by 64%, and special education transportation has gone up by 58%. And I'll put a little pet peeve in. I know economics are complicated, but the state formula does not benefit the small towns. And what happens is you never know when a small town is going to get hit with a huge cost. And so I have some problems with the formula and the way outside aid is provided for the towns. I'll talk a little more about it as we go along. But 72% of the net budget increase one way of looking at it is that 72% of the net budget increase is linked to these two special education factors, transportation and outside tuition. If we put it another way, if we didn't have those special aid costs, we'd be looking at a 0.7% increase rather than 2.48%. So tuition and transportation. And again, there's a lot of transparency. We're very fortunate. We have an excellent Board of Education Finance Committee as well as Town Committee, and we have liaisons from the town there. So we're able to really, on a monthly basis, show exactly where we are, so there are no surprises as we go along. Now, part of our mantra is that we will constantly improve the quality of education at Beecher Road School. We take that very, very seriously. Now, remember, I showed you that each year, over the past several years, there's been an increase in population. Where the demographer said we should be at 6 something, we're at 777. We have not added to our support staff. We're making a modest request for an increase of a 0.5 position in art. And I want to give you the rationale. There are a lot of other things we'd like to ask for, but this is something we need. There's a current art staff, the staff is 1.5, and those teachers serve nearly 800 children. That's a ratio of 500 to 1. Remember, arts are the core of what we do at Beecher Road School. Additional half position brings the ratio down to 400 to 1. Not only will the art program be enhanced, we'd be able to expand our art studio. Art studio is unique to Beecher Road School. It's been a long time tradition. It's a place where children can go during the lunchtime, free time, during school time, and really get involved in unique, creative types of activities. That helps a lot with brain development and prepares them in many ways for, for their life ahead. So that's our request. The second request is that we are asking for an additional part-time maintenance worker. I shouldn't say additional because we really don't have any maintenance workers. We have a building facilities director who is constantly running from one end of our 173,000 square foot building to the other, fixing the toilet here, a leak there, and so on. So the number of requests for repairs has been increasing. Plus, we're so fortunate with the upgrade. But with the upgrade has come more filters in individual classrooms, and we know we have promised to be good stewards of our facilities and of our grounds. So we want to make sure that we have proper maintenance work that's done. And this position is a low-cost one. There's no health insurance, there's no retirement, and it does a lot of standard little things that could prevent a lot of big trouble down the line. Cost effective, it reduces the outside need for contracted maintenance requirements, reduces the need for overtime, and again, provides operational maintenance. When our teachers put in their requests into school dues, we don't want them to wait a month to have something repaired in their classroom. So this part-time, low-cost position would help a great deal in that direction. In total, we have a little over 128 positions at Beecher Road School. The half position, which would increase the art, and the half position, the operational support. We have 42 classroom teachers, but obviously teaching is not the same as it was when I went to school. Maybe some of you too. I went to school as a teacher in front of the classroom, that's it. Well, the hospitals are different today too. When we go to a hospital, we all expect a medical team to work on us. There's not one doctor, there's a whole series of specialists. Education is important, so we approach it as a team. Any good school system does. So the children are taken care of by a team of teachers, and that's all kinds of specialists in reading and science and mathematics and so on, working together with the classroom teachers. And you can see just a few there. We're asking for a part-time art. We do have 2.5 music teachers for our almost 800 children. We have 3 PE health teachers. We have 2 world language teachers. And with our language arts, and language arts is Reading and writing are the king and queen of any elementary program because they open the umbrella to the multiple literacies. So one of those four deals almost exclusively with children who have English as a second language. So there's mandated services. So the other three work very, very conscientiously with our nearly 800 children. Let's talk about major increases and decreases in the budget. Now we have an area called purchase services. Purchase services includes transportation and tuition, as well as other areas including interns, workers' compensation, and liability costs. And you can see that that has increased quite a bit. The transportation and tuition costs have been the major drivers in that. Okay, if you look at the increases, so that's 467,000 plus in increases. Our reductions too are there. Now with benefits, we actually, at the time we put the budget together, if there are changes in the months ahead, we'll come right back to you, or you'll know before us because we work closely with the town on insurance. But at the time the budget was put together, there was a savings of 70,000 in insurance. That's in spite of the fact that our premiums went from 7% to 12%. And you might ask, how could that happen? That happened through the cooperation with our employees and our contract negotiations, particularly with the WEA, our teachers group, because we negotiated a new type of insurance that provides high-quality health benefits for our teachers, but at more cost-effective to the town. So that's where we got that from. And we gained in some other areas. So the total reductions were 133,000. So that's the net increase of 334,000, 2.48%. Where do the dollars go to? Well, it's no surprise that just about 80% goes to salaries and benefits. That's the nature of education. Our children get direct services from people, so that's the core of what we do as far as our budget. Other items that kind of stand out, 5% of the budget is for transportation, 3% for outside tuition. 3% is for professional technical services, which includes professional development, legal fees, software support, substitute teachers, long-term substitute teachers, our IT support, IT engineer, services for special ed with occupational therapy or physical therapy, and the board share of the audit that we do every year. So that will give you an idea of how the money is, where the money goes. A summary of dollars. Well, let's look at salaries. Certified staff went up by 2.4%. All others, now what's all others? All others are secretaries, custodians, cafeteria workers, lifeguards, teaching assistants. So that 3.4% includes the new halftime maintenance position, plus any contractual agreements that we've had in dealing with our unions. The benefits you see, there's a minus 2.6%. So the subtotal salaries and benefits is an increase of 1.3%. Let's look at some other areas. We have hundreds of accounts. Again, we've scrubbed each account and have tried to reduce as many as possible. Here are some main areas of decrease and increase. Utilities and heating, and we understand why, have gone down. Furniture, we're very careful about that, that's gone down. And it's obvious, again, where our drivers are as far as our increase. Using the engineering studies from our upgrade and our own experience of our business managers, myself, we conservatively estimated that there will be a savings as far as the upgrade. And again, this is a conservative estimate of 53,000 plus. And it's our first year through, so we want it to be on the conservative side. But that's in spite of the fact that we have full air conditioning from one end of the building to the other. What's the impact the facilities upgrade had on the environment? Again, we're very thankful to our town for this year. But the impact has been healthier air quality, better lighting, and more conducive to teaching and learning. There's been so many statements and anecdotes from our teachers on this here. What an improvement. And it reduces the carbon footprint, which is important to the town of Woodbridge. With our upgrade, by the way, too, we're looking to develop different educational projects. We'll tie the children and give them educational experiences as far as energy renewal and how energy is being used and how to move more towards conservation and things of that sort. I think it's important to mention that the town is blessed in getting so much revenue from the town, but there's a synergy. The district also generates funds for the town that not everyone is aware of from outside sources. For example, special education excess costs. What that means that if there's a child outplaced and there's expense for transportation and tuition, when the amount of that cost reaches 4.5 times the per pupil cost of that child in the district, then the state will give back a percentage of that. It could be 70%, 80%, it changes from year to year. So this year, the town, usually that goes to the district. Our agreement with the town is that the money goes straight to the town. We don't have any contingency. And then if we have a need, if there's unexpected costs, then we go to the town and request funding. And if there's unexpected savings, then we go to the town and return the money there. So grant money is $319,000, and that usually pays for a lot of mandated programs that we have. And there's something called educational cost sharing. It's a very complicated formula, but towns were awarded a certain amount by the state because of the educational system. And this year it's $732,000 plus. So there's a total of over $1 million that the district generates for the town. I want to get back to since special education is an important aspect of this budget. I want to present this chart. It's a complicated chart, so I'll walk you through it. Think of it as 4 distinct columns. Please don't add vertically. No, add vertically, don't add horizontally. The first column is the amount of money that the town received from the state for excess special education costs. And it varied from year to year. We had a high of 133 in 2004. There was 53,000 one year, 25,000 this year. The total in the past 12 years has been over $900,000 that the town has received. Now this is what the Board of Ed has asked of the town. I'm presenting it historically, when there was a need. We've done pretty well with this here. There was a need in 2004 for 13,000. There was a need in 2007 for nearly 300,000, and that's where we saw the 9% increase. So the total, not counting this year, that we've asked is less than 300,000 over the past 12 years. Now, there has been a year, it doesn't happen too often, 2014, that historic year when there was unexpected savings in special ed. And we went right to the town and said, here are the savings. The town, we have such a collaborative relationship, turned around and said, in partnership with the board, said, why don't you use part of that money for kitchen equipment and technology, and we'll take it out of the capital budget. So there's a working relationship there. The other part, last column, is the surplus. At the end of the year, we try to be transparent throughout the whole year. If there's any monies left through cost savings or anything, we don't go out and buy a new math series, we don't go out and buy a new this or that without a conversation with the town. This is the money that we handed over to the town each of the years. And some of the years where there's large amount, it wasn't from padding accounts, it was some very systemic cost savings that brought very big dividends to the town. So our total was over $1 million that we have returned to the town. So put another way, over the past 12 years, the district has returned over $1 million to the town in surplus funds, and has asked, during that time first 12 years, over $1 million to the town in surplus funds, right? And then nearly $1 million in excess special education costs. And we have asked for, I guess, close to $300,000 in special ed costs. Dr. Ken Robinson, a noted scholar, international scholar, very well known, prolific writer, a good thinker, had this question for us, for everyone to ponder. What matters in an education that is worthy of the lives our children will live in, worthy of the world we want them to live in? And the answer, in his own words, the answer is to nurture communities of creative, joyful, compassionate learners who use courageous and innovative thinking to build a harmonious and sustainable world. That's what we have been doing and are doing at Beecher Road School with your support. And when I say we, I mean all of us, including the citizens of Woodbridge. So thank you very much for your attention. If you give me just a minute to get settled, we'll try to answer any questions that you may have. Well, mine is one business manager, so if there's any question I can't answer, I'll come back and answer.
Any questions for Dr. Stella? Wow.
You cover everything, Dr. Stella.
Dr. Stella, I have one about the demographics. Sure. Assuming we're using the same demographer, and we won't hold them accountable for how far off we were from 5 years ago. I looked at the page pretty carefully, and it looks like you project that, I think it was year 2020 to 2021, will top off at about 859 students. Approximately 4 to 5 years from now.
Right.
And then for some reason, we're going to go down every year. However, when you came in, or about 10, 12 years ago, when we were at our high, wasn't Beecher at one point over 1,000?
Yes, now, when we go by memory,
I wasn't much.
there was about 2000, 2001,
Yeah.
that we were over 1,000 or just hitting
Right,
1,000.
just hitting 1,000.
But there was a decline since that time. So every year there was a decline. So when I came in, it was like the sliding pond.
Mm-hmm.
And the talk all around was the school was declining. Some of the talk sounded as if the school was going to disappear. Because every year there was a decline. Then it started to decline far less. With each year, started to decline far less than was projected. And not just by one demographer, there were a couple of studies too. So far less, if they said it was going to decline by 50, it might have been a decline of 15 or something like that. Then the trajectory, and I did this in one of my presentations, just went around about 5 years ago, and you saw a steady climb going on with it. And the projection is, and I think it's a, based on what we know today, anything could change, but I think it's a healthy one because families are coming in on a slow pace, but a steady pace into Woodbridge.
I guess my point being, in the last 20 years, our high point was a little over 1,000. Our low point appears to be 723. So where you're projecting to max out, being 859, is right dead smack in the middle where we've basically been in the last 20 years. Ups and downs, but that has been around our average.
Now remember, we're bucking the trend because there's a serious problem in Connecticut, and that's the decline in enrollment. Young people are leaving the state. There's not a lot of lower number of children coming into areas outside the city, and retirees are leaving too. So.
I think what's interesting is that you had to add a kindergarten class, but you've been able to maintain that class. It keeps getting filled every year.
It does.
So that actually kind of shows you the status
does.
of where we
And
are.
by the way, kindergarten is probably the hardest class to project.
Yeah.
As far as enrollment, because you could go by the births, you could go by some patterns and so on. But it's hard to predict the moving trucks. It really is. And that one year, it just happened to be
It was
an influx of kindergarten students. We've never seen anything like it before. But what a town. I thought I was in big trouble when I came and said, look, we had to open another class.
Yeah.
And what I heard was, oh, good.
Yeah.
To that point, I'm mindful, Dr. Stella, that even though your chart does not show an increase in faculty over the course of those 5 or 6 years, it does show an increase in class size. So I think that the Board of Education is going to have a little bit of a struggle with that, and appropriately so,
Right.
it seems to me. I mean, I don't think that that's a slam dunk. Having sat on that board, I understand that that's something you struggle with year to year.
That's
So
correct.
it's only a projection.
That's correct. It's only a projection
Right.
because
Right.
one of our major things with this budget, our teachers are working so hard. They are working so hard.
Right.
They're working after school on committees. The work is done by teachers and administrators. Our administrators are working hard too. But they're very committed to the school. And we're asking so much of them because Beecher Road School does it all. And we want to be innovative. We want to move our children ahead. So we have to have reasonable class sizes that they could work with.
Right.
Instruction is different from what it was even 10 years ago, 5 years ago.
Right.
And there are members of our faculty and administrators in the audience that are here tonight representing the others. The biggest treasure we have at the school are really our faculty, our staff, and our administrators. They're very, very dedicated. Tony, does that answer all your questions? Or what I'll mention too is after 5 years, it's hard to project anything after 5 years.
Yeah.
So it's that's a big one.
That's why it goes straight down. Actually, it does. And to Susan's point, I looked at that page 6 5-year projections
Yeah.
where you shuffled teachers depending on where you saw the
Absolutely.
increase and decrease. And other than that one teacher being added about 4 years out, your projection currently is that you'll be able, hopefully, again,
Hopefully.
depending on who comes and when,
Yeah.
Right.
you'll be able to basically keep the same staff until we see that.
Tony, I'm serious about our mantra. Quality education, and then we have to watch how our budgets go too, and combine the two together.
Dr. Stella, this is also our opportunity to thank you and the entire Beecher community for the great job that you all do educating our children. And having seen over these last couple of years what it means to have the collaborative relationship you've described, I can't really impress upon people without seeing it how important that is and what a difference it makes. So that's a credit to you and again to the entire Beecher community. I want to also commend Al Pulo, who I know is out right now, but he does such a terrific job.
He does.
And I know there are Board of Education members here tonight, and I hope as you look for a new superintendent, you know you have the gold standard to meet, and how important it's been for the entire town to have a superintendent who works so well with the town for all of us. So thank you all.
Thank you.
Oh, you have more questions?
Are there any other questions?
No.
Well, then I'd like to say something because I've had more dealings with the superintendents in Woodbridge than anybody here tonight. So, for those of us who've been here a long time, there used to be a very definite adversarial relationship with the superintendents, the board. It was very difficult. And when I can remember saying I spent many sleepless nights over the years, but with Amity too, as you all know, when we had that financial crisis. But with the hiring of John Brady, and I believe you came just after John Brady,
Right.
I slept a lot better for many years. So I think on behalf of the Board of Finance, and I'm assuming I can speak for the Board of Selectmen also, we want to thank you for the years you've given us. You've been a marvel, and you've you've made the relationship a trusting relationship, which is very important. As you said, you always use the word transparency, and that's been a key part of your tenure here, is you've been transparent. We know ahead of time if there's as we do now, there's a special ed problem. I can remember years when we were trying to get to print with the budget and we couldn't get the figures on special education at that later date. So I think the town owes you a debt of gratitude. You've been a marvelous superintendent. And I'd like to draw a parallel with you, if you'd like. In a couple of weeks after the Super Bowl, there's a very strong possibility that one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of football is going to retire, and that's, of course, Peyton Manning. And I'd like to say, that the greatest superintendent in the history of Woodbridge is also retiring. So thank you.
Right now, you gotta go long.
You're lucky you don't know about me there. I used to play street football. But my last 10 years have been absolutely wonderful. I've done a lot of things in my career, very worthwhile things. I've traveled across the country, across the world. I've been involved in so many types of things. One of the best chapters of my life that's given me so much fulfillment is working here in Woodbridge. And I would say Beecher Road School, the town of Woodbridge, is a microcosm, and I say this wherever I go, a microcosm of what education should be and what town functioning should be. Because again, the town values education. There's such a spirit of volunteerism in the town. There's civil discourse that takes place on different subjects. People give their points of view and so on, but it involves the citizenry. And it's a fun place to be. So it's pure, and as I told the members of the faculty and staff and administration, I'm not retiring tomorrow. We have 6 months and a lot of work to do. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. You've been a
Good news,
pleasure.
Dr. Stowe, is your arm is still stronger than Peyton Manning's.
Could I also?
Great espresso.
That's great.
I also want to say that as a liaison to the Board of Ed for your entire term, your creation of a vision for the school, for the children, for the faculty is really the legacy that you leave. And yes, you've been very sensitive to the finances and you ask for funds when you need to, but I think the real contribution that will live on for so many years is what you've done for the children, the programs you've established, and the support that you provided to your staff. So I thank you for that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. And again, I give a lot of credit to our staff and our administration. Couldn't do it without them. Thank you so much.
Okay, have a good evening.
Have a good evening.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Gilbertson.
Good evening. You will all recognize my colleague Christine Thomas.
Okay. Well, let's wait a couple of people get seated.
Sorry.
Good evening. That's a hard act to follow.
Yeah.
But your budget's much smaller.
But welcome company. The building department budget, which is in your books of 1270, represents, I believe it's our 9th zero-based budgeting event, except for contracted amounts. There are no changes. except for a machinery equipment budget number that reflects a contracted amount with a high-speed copier in our office. It's a 3-year contract. We erred last year in that budget number, and so we are correcting it in this budget year. We think we owe you the accurate information. As far as this particular year, we have covered the cost of that within the side of our budget in affecting savings in other line items. And so that's this, we feel that we have no choice but to reflect that contracted amount with the copier company. There's one other increase with our funds for department vehicle, and we think this is a prudent expense as a budget item.
Any questions for Terry?
We could speak just shortly about revenue, if you'd like.
Sure. We like revenue, Terry. One of our favorite accounts.
As you know, this is the time of year in which we gather together to anticipate how much construction there will be in Woodbridge in 18 months from now. And this is you're used to hearing me say that should I be able to do this very accurately, we all should find another line of work because this could be worth money. We, however, promised you in our budget last year at this time $107,000 worth of building permit revenue, and as of today, we have $100,288, and so we believe that we're going to be able to satisfy our promise.
Excellent. You could add him to your staff.
To that extent, can I go back a page on your performance indicators?
Sure.
So from this year, from last year, almost every number was drastically different. Up, down, but all very different. But for next year, the projections are to all be the same. Is that because you don't necessarily see the indicators, or you're not going to try to guess at it? In other words, do you see a trend where it seems like it's going to be the same?
If we were to have this conversation 6 months ago, I would tell you that we were trending up. But in the last 3 months, I can't produce. I'm not optimistic. I am concerned. And I would rather underpromise and overdeliver, quite frankly. But we had a slow spring. We had a busy summer. And it's interesting how things change. A year ago, we were talking about generators. And this year, we're saying solar cells. And I have no idea what it will be next year, or some combination thereof. We have a dramatic difference in the amount of generators that are being installed in our community. And we have a dramatic increase in the number of solar cells installations. So, I think it's, we're not building a lot of brand new houses at the moment. We are extensively renovating our kitchens and bathrooms. So it's interesting how much it stays the same. When you look back at 25 years of building department records, however, it is pretty consistent. So, in times, I know personally when we would do 25 new houses a year in Woodbridge, I think we're doing 2 this year. But in those times, we don't do as many of the smaller renovations as we do otherwise.
Okay, anything else for Terry on building department? Why don't we move to town planning and zoning, which is 1180. Again, 0% increase. Any questions on this?
No.
Zoning Board of Appeals. Terry, you're hitting a home run here. 0% increase. Any questions on this?
We got the memo.
And you read it.
So I
More
have a
importantly, you
question.
read it.
I have a question about the legal ads. So we're projecting $2,000 for this year in terms of end of the year budget, and yet we're asking for $4,000 for next year. What is the rationale for that?
On zoning board of appeals, we literally don't know what will walk in the door.
Right.
It must be something to do with that moving van of Dr. Stella's. The zoning board of appeals only meets when called upon to either ask for a variance or to appeal a order of a zoning enforcement officer. So we feel that we responsibly have to budget as if we're going to have the cost of incur these legal ads. But it's been a slow year at the zoning board of appeals. And so I can say for just a moment that the cost of legal ads is a horrible experience that we're all, I believe, as many boards and commissions that have to run notices, suffer from. Every year we advocate in our groups for legislative change. It is the most expensive form of advertising, and we wish that more online resources could be utilized. We can't see how we can produce a lawful decision without it.
Okay, so you're just asking for what was in the budget for the last year. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? And how about 1630 in the wetlands? Again, no increase. Any questions on that?
One question on the applications I see seem to be steadily reducing. Is that just because basically we're an established community and there's not as many issues or new requests for? I noticed that the applications have dropped from 17 to 14 to 12.
I believe that there are two indicators for growth and change in our community, and one of them is the application to the Inland Wetlands Agency. By the way, another one is that I asked the excavators who work in this community on how many B100s, a test of septic capacity. Those are the two things that allow us to think what's going to happen in this. Because usually in Woodbridge, to do almost anything, you need either one or the other, if not both. And it's that level of activity at the Inland Wetlands Agency that makes me draw back our projections for growth, because I think that's an indicator. It's our little canary in the mine shaft.
And as Terry mentioned, a lot of the building permits that we see are interior renovations to buildings rather than expansion because it's in the footprint. So if it was a footprint, we might see more permits that were going before the Inland Wetlands Agency. But when it's interior and there's nothing outside that requires action by the Inland Wetlands Agency, then we don't see that.
Any other questions?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool, are you ready for us?
Sure.
Okay. Tab 1135, government access to.
Evening, folks.
Good evening.
Our budget creeps up slowly, but it does creep up. One of the things we added last year that we were continuing this year was a contract to stream our channel over the internet. We don't have a lot of hits on it yet, most of the time. Originally, the idea was to make the program, live meetings available from the gym. Maybe we could do it on the internet and get it to the television, but we haven't even got to the point where we can get it on the internet. In the meantime, I've just left it on to see who we can get. We probably need some publicity on that, and I sent a press release to Betsy last week, so we'll see how that goes. The other thing that's going up is conferences and professional development. We were hoping to send a second person to the national conference for the Alliance of Community Media out to Boston because it's that close this year. So why not? Otherwise, what can I tell you?
Anybody have any questions?
I don't think anybody has any problem with the purpose. We get requests to record more things than we can do. We had a request from Recreation Commission to cover them just on a day that we couldn't do it. Economic Development has asked if we could do some of their breakfasts. I said, it depends on how late I am up the night before. So I haven't done it yet, but if we can cultivate more students who can do more of the away things, maybe we can do it. And that's why the budget creeps.
I have a question, just a quick one. So, Pua, you're the one who sort of determines the distribution of resources, what gets covered and what doesn't get covered? Is that pretty much how that happens?
With advice from the commission. For example, Country Club of Woodbridge Commission.
Right.
Many years ago when it just got started and everybody said, what are these people going to do? The commission said, we'd better cover every meeting.
Right.
The business meetings, Mr. Hotchkiss has sort of said, well, we could provide more information and tried to get me the reports to put the charts on television.
Well, let me ask it a slightly different way. So are you setting this out like on a month-by-month basis, a week-by-week basis, or a day-by-day basis?
Pretty much month by month.
Okay.
And there are regular things, and there are meetings that are priorities.
Right.
Selectmen, finance, education.
All right. Well, the regular stuff I knew. The other stuff I was wondering about.
The extra stuff, I guess it depends. The energy workshops last year, I think we got almost all of those.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And those we figured out how to do as they were scheduled.
Okay, thank you.
So to Susan's question, I see you were planning on covering more meetings this year, more programs on YouTube and more hours of programming. Can you tell me, I read your major objectives, can you tell me what meetings or what you were hoping this year you might be able to include more to get up to that number or close to it?
What I was really hoping to do as a category was safety, so I really wanted to try to catch Police Commission and Fire Commission. They're a little bit hard to do because Fire Commission kind of schedules it when they can make sure they have all their people. And it's a matter of moving equipment over there, finding somebody to do it, and get the equipment back to me. So that's a barrier, but we managed to do it this month when the college kids were home.
That's it.
Thank you for all you do.
Thanks, Alan.
Can I just add?
Sure.
Sure.
I'd just like to add a few things in terms of what would, beyond the budget, which is terrific, that would be very helpful. One is that we've been able to generate, was it about $33,000 in an outside grant, right in the areas for capital expenditures. So we continue to seek that to help upgrade the facilities and so forth. But in conjunction with that, what we would ask to help take advantage of that technology, which resides here in this room. This is the best equipped room to allow people to hear and see what goes on in committees. So if there's a way to encourage smaller meetings like this to use this facility, that would be terrific. So again, how can we get more usage of this location rather than off-site locations? Also, as Pua said, that while we have a limited number of people who are watching streaming, we believe that has a lot to do with promotion. The people are just not aware of that capability, of that service being offered. So Pua did submit a request to promote. If there are other ways that we could provide content, whether we can get it done through the newspaper, through e-newsletters, if any posters we can put up elsewhere, we encourage any ideas, as well as if there are ways to leverage any ride-along with any letters that you send out on a weekly, monthly, yearly basis as a way to get into people's mailboxes. And also what we'd like to do is really determine on a town-wide basis people's needs and viewership. So again, if we can ride along in some of your snail mail, in which we can submit a several question survey, both through snail mail as well as email, we can have a better, more accurate assessment of people's exact needs and also viewership. Because I mean, we can see what's going on online in terms of how many people are viewing, but how many people are watching our channel, we just don't know, other than the people that come up to us on an anecdotal basis. So we'd like to be able to provide that information to the town to say, listen, we've conducted a survey, we now have a baseline to say that X% of the population has been viewing, wants to view it. I think that would be very useful for all of us. Thank you.
By the way, excuse me, you are?
Sorry, Alan DeYoung, and my title is, am I assistant chair?
I think you're something
This year
like
I'm the
that.
assistant chair.
Nice to meet you.
Yes.
Well, not for nothing, you just gave quite a shout out to yourself, so, you know, it's like if you're viewing, folks, they want to know what you have
My
to
kids
say.
are viewing at home. Yeah,
Okay.
streaming.
Right. Well, you gotta start somewhere.
Yes, exactly. Viewership at 3.
Are you still on YouTube?
Yes, yeah, yes. All the links to YouTube and to the stream are on our blog, and the blog is on our page on the town website, I think. But I can get you